Hello everyone, this is Mia with Mia's Acrylic Creations, and I wanted to do a little video on the cornstarch method. And this method is used, or I use it at least, when I use silicone with any of my pours. And I had posted a picture of my bin here and got a ton of questions on how and why and all of this stuff. So I wanted to make a quick video for everyone so they can see the process and kind of help to answer some of the questions that you had. I'm set up in my kitchen today, so apologies for that. I don't usually do videos in my kitchen. My setup is usually in my studio, but I made a little haphazard setup here, so I hope it's going to work. So in this bin here, I have my items, my art. These are vinyl records which have been poured using silicone, and they have a coating of cornstarch. And this is the cornstarch that I use. Just any cornstarch is fine. And in this bin, there's about 10 to 12 pieces of art in here. And also there is, the items that I use is a chalk brush. This is a brush that usually is used with chalk paint. It has very stiff bristles. And this is very helpful to have. And also I have a finer brush. These can run anywhere from $15 to $30 depending on the quality. This is a really good quality one, and you can get them on Amazon. This is just a soft makeup brush where you can pick up for, you know, $3 or $4 at Walmart or whatever. So I'm going to set you down here, and I'm going to try to show you how this works. So what I do is I would take all of my individual pieces here, and I just spread them. I dust the cornstarch on top, and I take my brush and I just swirl it around, working the cornstarch into the surface. Now I know this setup is not the best setup, but I'm hoping you'll get the gist of it. So I'm swirling the brush. Let me see if I could pick up this camera here. I'm full of cornstarch, but let's see here. So I'm swirling the cornstarch over the whole entire surface. And you'll start to see that the cornstarch is no longer fine. You'll start to see these little, like, balls form, or like chunky pieces form. And that's the silicone that's getting pulled up by using the cornstarch. So after I do this for a couple of swirls, I just keep it covered and I set it aside. Now I just want to explain the process here. So when we use silicone and we mix it throughout our paint and we pour our paint, the silicone goes to all levels of the paint. So when you're using something like the Dawn, and you're washing the first surface, it's only taking the first layer of silicone out. This cornstarch really, it's so dry and so porous, it just sucks up all of the silicone from all of the layers. So after I do that, I let these sit for 2 days. You can let them sit for longer, but I find that 2 days works for me. And I find that it's not crucial to go longer. I mean, I guess if you could go longer if you use more silicone, but 2 days works for me. So after they've set for 2 days, I come in with my brush again, and I just really work the surface again. Making sure that all that silicone is off. And then I take my finer brush and I just wipe down the surface, just getting the residual off. And I just do both sides because that's what your back will look like. The cornstarch is messy. It's one of my least favorite things to do, but I really feel that it's crucial in something that, you know, the end process really pays off. So after that, what I do is you'll still see like these little balls here, like they're kind of chunky. That's all silicone that's been sucked up by the cornstarch. And I'll give you another example here. When you take these out of the bin, now these have been sitting for a day, but you'll really start to see like these chunks start to form here and there. And that's your silicone. That's your silicone that has been sucked up through the layers of the paint. And when you begin to work this off, you'll start to see these streaks here. You see these streaks that start to happen. And that's all silicone that's getting worked off. So now back to this. After I've brushed it, and you can still see, like for example here, there's these little balls of cornstarch. That is all silicone that has been sucked up through the surface. So now basically what I do is I'm going to wet my surface, getting all the silicone off my hands and off of the surface of the canvas. And you can do this with canvas. These are vinyl records that will be turned into clocks, but you can do this with a canvas, of course, a little bit more carefully, not to wet the back. And then what I'm going to do is I take just one drop. That's all you need. One drop of the Dawn. And with a wet hand, you're just going to work this in until it gets nice and sudsy. And you could start to see the suds form. And this gets off any silicone and any residual cornstarch. And I just work it in until all of the surfaces are covered. And this, as you can see, there's no paint that's coming off, as opposed to with using a sponge. Sometimes if you scrub it with a sponge, you'll start to see your sponge change color, and that's because it's pulling up paint. And I just do a quick, around the sides, because your varnish will adhere to that. So just a quick scrub, and then a rinse. Now I have not had any problems with this, and like I said, this is a messy, tedious job, but I feel that it's crucial to do for a great end result. Once all of your bubbles and suds are thoroughly rinsed off, what you're going to do, or what I do, is I will set this aside on a lint-free towel and let it dry for 2 days, and then what I do is then I'm able to varnish it after another couple of days of drying. But what I wanted to really reiterate is that when we pour with silicone, now keep in mind, if you don't use silicone, you could totally skip this process. It's not a process that's necessary. But when you are using silicone or dimethicone or any of those things, it's important to get that silicone out of all of the layers. And sometimes just using the Dawn or the alcohol just gets it off that top layer. And what happens is, yes, it works. And I'll tell you what my experience has been. So in the past, when I've just done it with Dawn or alcohol, it gets the top layer of silicone off, and then you go to varnish it and it works fine. But then what happens is in 2 or 3 months, you start to notice that your piece is in some spots not quite as shiny or is starting to flake off. And that's the silicone coming up through the layers of paint. And as we know, the silicone is very slick and slippery. So once it starts to, once again, come up to the surface, it starts to chip and break and lose its luster on the top surface of your finished item. So I know this is a lengthy process, and a lot of people might not do it. I do know a lot of people that do it. And if you're really selling your pieces or doing this for commission work, it's really important to take this extra step so that your piece will last. You want the piece that you sell to last for many years. So, and again, I use polyacrylic. I do not use resin. I have no experience with resin. I'm going to be using resin here probably in the next few months, starting to my experimentation with that. But this is just if you're using a polyacrylic varnish, which is what I use. And so there's my process, and I hope this has helped some of you who had a lot of questions. Sometimes I know people are more visual learners, and you know, trying to text everyone and tell them the process, things get lost in text. So I hope that this kind of helps. And another quick tip is get a bin. If you're going to use this process, get a bin, because the cornstarch is super messy. And the bin really helps contain it, and then you can just leave your stuff in there, close it away, put it under a bed or in your studio or whatever. Forget about it for 2, 3, 4 days, and then come back to it to do your washing process, and then you're all set. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any more questions, please text me. You can reach me at Me as Acrylic Creations on Facebook and through Messenger. And I'm always happy to help anyone who's new to this process and answer any questions. And I'm always willing to learn new things as well. Again, this will work with any surface. When you use acrylic paint, it dries to a plasticky type finish, so it's waterproof. I mean, you can't soak it in water for 3 weeks, but running it underwater is not going to hurt it. And I do it with my canvases. I'm just a little bit more careful with the back of it, but again, the canvas is cotton, it dries. And you already have your base paint down on there, so it shouldn't hurt it at all. I wanted to say one more thing about alcohol, and those of you who use alcohol. I find that using the 91% alcohol makes my surface very tacky when it comes in contact with the simethicone or anything like that, or the WD-40 or whatever people are using out there. It makes it very tacky and sticky, and it also pulls up a lot of paint, which your end result, sometimes you can really tell because your varnish gets patchy, because of course there's not quite as much paint because you pulled up some of the paint. Anyway, so here's the process. Here's my little setup. I'm in my kitchen, so again, apologies. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps some of you. And please like and share my page, Me as Acrylic Creations, at Facebook. And happy pouring, and have a wonderful day. Bye!